Why Ethereum?
I think Ethereum is kind of the technology that's going against the trend. With the rise of like Web 2, kind of these massive companies get built, and then we find ourselves on like 5 or 6 servers. So you could think like Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, Google. And what we envisioned to be this kind of open and free web ended up us on like 5 different servers. In 2006, the Time Person of the Year was you. And that's because like this was in the internet era where like everyone was just like creating fun and new things on the internet. And like the internet was this like fun and free place. But we ended up on like all these servers. Okay. Now Ethereum is actually the counterbalance to that. Um, we're designing Ethereum and like we're as in like the entire Ethereum community because like Ethereum is like not owned by one person. Anybody can just like join the Zoom calls to like influence the way the protocol changes. Anybody can like build apps, do whatever you want. Imagine if Apple put their like internal strategy meetings like on YouTube for everybody to see. It's just like boggles your mind because that would just never happen. But this like Ethereum system is open and free, and like we can use this to like return power to the people and like redesign like all of society if kind of things work out the way that we want them to. Like nothing is guaranteed. We're gonna like have to work hard. But like we can kind of make the world more open and free and return more power to the people. And I think that's like a really important movement to be a part of.
Excited to talk to you about yourself a little bit, about your journey and sort of how you came into the Ethereum ecosystem, and then also to just talk about Ethereum generally. I'm a big fan, big fan of Ethereum as well, as you might
Me too.
have known. And yeah, so I'm excited to just riff and chat about that. And so I'd love to just hear more about you, and I'm sure our listeners would as well. So welcome, Jason.
Yeah, thank you for that intro. I'm a fan of the pod. I love the work that you're doing, and so I'm happy to be here and excited to discuss all things Ethereum.
Amazing. And people who are listening know our pod well, and they know that one thing we like to do is start off with the person before the project. So if you're comfortable sharing, we'd love to hear a little bit about where Jason came from. Where did you grow up? What's your upbringing like? And also, what did you do sort of before you fell down the famous crypto rabbit hole?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in a New York suburb in Connecticut. It was a nice upbringing. I really valued my time as a child. I definitely my like biggest interest was sports. I was a tennis player. I played high school tennis, and I loved playing basketball and following along sports too. And that's definitely what me and my dad like connected on the most too. Like we would always go to the U.S. Open every year and go down to the
Oh,
city
that's cool.
for like Knicks and Giants games, and yeah, very fun. Um, I wasn't necessarily a nerd yet. I was still figuring myself out with my interests. And so when I went to college, I studied finance. And that wasn't necessarily because I was like very interested or passionate about finance. It was more so I grew up in a New York suburb. My dad works in finance, and it's kind of the major that you do if you're not sure what you want to do, but you want to like be successful to your peers.
It's like the New York equivalent of a philosophy degree or a history degree.
Exactly. And then an added on perk is that I don't think it's really the hardest degree. And I definitely wanted to um, not spend all my time in the library during college. And so I
Where
think
did you go to
that was
college?
University of Illinois.
Okay, nice.
We were in the middle of farmland, which was quite
Okay.
nice just because it's like a real college town. It's one of the like bigger college towns in America. I'm not sure what the size of the school is now, but it's I think a top 15 size school. And then the broader like Champaign Urbana area has a bunch of kind of companies based there too. So it has that real like
Okay.
college town feel.
That is really cool. What made you choose that college? Do you remember?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted a like bigger school with kind of a lot of energy and definitely like a passionate sports program. I kind of wanted um, the college experience that you kind of think about when you see on TV with like I don't know a Big Ten or SEC, and you go to the games and You have like a lot of fun, and you still like are able to get a good degree and like have a
And
great network
college
after.
sports in the U.S. is no joke. Like I'm Canadian. The culture is not exactly the same here. Actually, it's not the same at all when it comes to college sports here in Canada, which is funny considering we're so close. But like a lot of people who are outside of America don't understand how big a deal college sports is. Like these stadiums for college football specifically are bigger than like, for example, our CFL stadiums here for like professional football here in Canada. It's nuts.
Yeah, and like depending on where you are, there will people who it's the most important thing to them, like more than anything else, more than their jobs. Like it's almost like a religion to them. Illinois definitely has that for basketball. However, ironically, I get there and we were absolutely terrible in all sports, but it was still yeah, it's okay. I still really fun and have no regrets. But
And it
and the
wasn't
reason
because
why
of you, right? I'm just
no,
kidding.
I was not. Yeah, I thought about doing club tennis, but then I didn't want to do the time commitment. But and then the reason why I chose Illinois over like any other kind of big school with those kind of vibes was solely
Yeah.
I just applied to all business schools and it was just the best one based on U.S. news that I got into. And I'm like, all right, I want to experience something new. And another draw was actually that I was like one of the only people from my high school to go there, and it's not a very common school to people in my high school. And I wanted to kind of like break out of my like high school bubble and like meet new people.
I had the very same sort of reasons for going where I went for college. Like a lot of my friends stayed close to home. I grew up in a very small town, and I just wanted to get out and like be somewhere that was kind of like a big city. And it's crazy to me that so many people stay so close to where they grew up their entire lives, and many of them, like even if they went a little bit far away for university, they ended up coming back and they're still, in their hometown. There's nothing wrong with that, but that was definitely me. Like I was like, how can I get away and create a new bubble and create new friends? That was important for me too.
Yeah, and that was actually my first introduction to like Ethereum and blockchain because this was when I was a senior. This was like peak ICO era for Ethereum. Um, and as like a college student, the kind of rumblings that were just going around was like, did you hear that XYZ person made like $50,000 on like
Oh, wow.
on Stellar or Tron or like insert all those ICO tokens? Um, and I
I'm
didn't have that much.
surprised that people were talking about it. Do you think it was because it was a finance major? Did that play into it? Or do you think it was like that at a lot of colleges at that time?
Um, I think it was like that at a lot of colleges at the time, just because college kids, I think, are more risky with regards to like gambling, because that's like really all it was. And like the ICO era, there was just be like a new ICO token, kind of in a way similar to the meme coin era we just had, except like the only difference was there was like actual kind of like ideas to like turn these projects into something. So you would be like, all right, this is the Uber for blockchain and it's about to raise like billions of dollars and the token with like 1,000x. And yeah, and then so everybody was just like talking about it about with regards to just like how to make a quick buck, honestly. Um,
Right.
and I never took it seriously just because I was a finance major, like I said at the time, and
Yeah.
all of the like financy people like Warren Buffett and Jamie Dimon were like, this is rat poison. And I'm like,
Well, they
okay,
still
well,
they still are like that. Some of them. So,
definitely. And at the
but Buffett
time,
will probably die that way. I'm sure.
I wasn't much of a, I'll say like first principles thinker. And I was not really spending much of my time even like trying to learn this. I'm just like, well, if they think that, then like, yeah, it's probably rat poison. But like, maybe I'll throw like
Yeah.
a couple $100 that I make like while working at a bar onto like XYZ coin. And like, it's kind of like going to the lottery. Like, I'm not thinking anything too seriously of this. Um, And so that was like my college experience. And then I ended up in graduating in finance and I did corporate banking for a year in Philadelphia. And that was like a huge shock to me because I kind of like woke up from college and was like, whoa, like this is the real world now. And like I have to work this 9 to 6 job at a desk and like wear a suit. And it's like, wait, what did I even like kind of sign up for here? I kind of just like
Wait, is this
rolled
what I
into
wanted?
this. Yeah, yeah.
Is that
Um,
similar to the kind of role that your father had as well in finance, or
My dad was more on the or is more on the accounting side, so this was
okay?
more on like the finance banking side. And then I was like, okay, this is like not what I want to do like at all. Like I majored in finance, like I want to do like finance. And so I started like studying really hard. I did this test called the CFA, which I would highly recommend nobody do. It's like
That's
so
certified financial advisor. That one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like extremely time consuming and you just kind of like memorize how to pass a test rather than like actually learn valuable skills.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I wanted to like actually like be in New York and like do like real investment banking. And I started to send out, I probably sent out like 1,000 emails probably. I would just go to LinkedIn, look at University of Illinois and search like investment banking and just like cold email, cold email, cold email. I'm like, I wanted to try to get any connection I had. And a couple of people came through to me. I got connected with somebody at Deutsche Bank that was doing investment banking. And then like he connected me to somebody. And then I ended up getting a job in New York doing investment banking. And then once I got there, I'm like, wow, I actually hate this even more than the previous finance job.
You went in deeper and it was even worse.
Uh-huh. But
That's right. What
yeah.
did you hate about it? Did it feel kind of soulless, or what was the reasoning?
But yeah, soulless to the max. It's just crazy walking into an environment where you have to go into this one building every day. You're there from like 8 to 8 most days. Nobody wants to be there. You're like, wait, I'm spending my entire day around people that like don't want to do this, doing work nobody wants to do. Like what am I doing with my life? Kind of.
Yeah, no, like grander purpose, I suppose. And I feel like those jobs oftentimes, I haven't worked a job exactly like that, but I have friends who have, and I've sort of been adjacent to it. And I find a lot of times people will justify it being like, oh, I'm just doing this for the short term. I'm just going to make a bunch of money and then I'll get out. But then they never do. It's kind of like a rat race. And they kind of, once you make a certain amount of money, you want to make more money. And it's yeah, not necessarily the most rewarding thing in the world.
Yeah, 100%. And then during that time too, I started listening to what was it? Like Bology on Tim Ferriss podcast
Nice.
and a bunch of Naval podcasts, a bunch of like Lex Friedman podcasts with like the blockchain people on it. And I'm like, okay, this space is like actually really interesting to me. Oh, also, I want to shout out one of my friends too. One of my friends who, from my college friend, he was like the one that was most into like Bitcoin and Ethereum at the time. And then once that like kind of bubble crashed from the ICO, we like all moved on. He just like stayed talking about it, posting about it, mostly focused on Bitcoin and like immutable money. And he just like
Turns
wouldn't
out he
stop.
was really there for the tech. He was the one guy.
But yeah. Oh yeah. He works in the space now, but he's more of like an anon, so I'm not gonna shout him out. But I'm gonna send this to him later, and he definitely gets a lot of credit for me joining this space because
You know who you are. You know who you
yes.
are, Jason's friend, who stayed during the bear market. Yeah, I mean that has been. I mean that sort of story has come up on this podcast many times, just about how people always think, "Oh, if I had only known about Bitcoin earlier, if I had only known about Ethereum earlier." But like that's really only half the story. I mean, or even less than half the story. You also had to hold through some pretty horrendous bear markets and like times when people said it was all going to zero and it looked like it was, etc. So yeah, kudos to your friend.
Yeah. And like it really connected the dots when COVID started. And in order to like backstop all the financial markets, the US just like printed all that money. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is what my friend has been posting about literally every single day for 2 years. And I kind of like didn't believe it until it actually happened.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I think that a lot of people during COVID had these types of aha moments. Like for me, actually getting into crypto, my pivot in my career was during COVID as well, and I find that to be true for a lot of people. Just we were all sitting around, with nothing better to do than think about our lives. So
Yeah. And then that obviously led me to Ethereum. And I started listening to like, by now they were already like way into the podcast, but I started the Bankless podcast from like episode 1, where they're just like
nice.
exploring what Ethereum is and like MakerDAO and like the triple point asset. And like, I was just like totally sold on Ethereum. And then I knew I wanted to quit and like go all in on this. And then I also just wanted to like,
this was 2021, I guess, around
this was
that time?
2021. Yeah.
Okay.
But
so the backdrop is sort of or not meme coin, but NFT mania at that
NFT
point.
mania.
Top Shot.
Yep.
Top Shot. Pudgy Penguins.
Yep. My first on-chain action was to buy an Ape Gang. So shout out Ape Gang NFT.
Nice. But not an ape. Not a BAYC.
No, not BAYC, but Ape Gang. So all my Ape Gangers out there, I don't know if that's what you're called, but you were my introduction to Ethereum, so I'm grateful. And yeah, and I also just wanted to, like some technical skills. Like I kind of felt like I didn't really have any like hard skills because finance, surprisingly, is actually just kind of a lot of like learning how to work Excel, but not in like a productive way, and making sure PowerPoint presentations are aligned. And I just like really wanted to learn how to code. And so that's what I spent a year doing. I certainly didn't become like a great software developer. I was like solid. Like I won an ETH Global hackathon prize. That was like a huge moment for me.
I saw
But
that when I was doing the research. That's really cool. That was one of the first things you did, I think, in the Ethereum ecosystem, right?
that was the first thing like out in the open kind of that I did. Yeah. So I was like really grateful. And that was like a big moment in my like career to be like, wow, all my like hard work is actually like showing off in something. But I also kind of saw the other kind of things that were out there in the in the Ethereum space. And I realized that like my skills were definitely not like uniquely suited to be a developer. I honestly didn't feel confident enough to start like contributing to open source code. And like at the time, no one was kind of hiring a junior dev. And I definitely
This
didn't
was
want to.
also pre-vibe code era. Also,
Yes, no ChatGPT. I wish I had ChatGPT to learn back then, but
how
I
did
did.
you learn? Were you completely self-taught, or because I'm sure
Yeah.
some people are listening to this and they're probably wondering, like, how can I pivot, like Jason, and get into a new career?
So I would do it totally differently now that ChatGPT and LLMs exist. But at
Right.
the time, I took Harvard's Intro to Computer Science class,
Yeah.
which I actually would not recommend if you're just starting out. Um,
Okay. Shots
unless you're like,
fired.
yeah, I mean, unless you're like one of those like 10x gigabrain type people, with regards to just like understanding how computers work. It was like really overwhelming for me because you have to learn like memory management, and like they learn C, and so that's probably a good place to start for like some people. But for me, I think I would have been better off kind of learning like full stack development and like front end work first, and like simple JavaScript rather than kind of learning how to like do this low level memory stuff. Shout
Isn't
out to
C notoriously one of the hardest
yeah, I
languages to
mean,
learn as well? Yeah.
I guess it makes sense that it's Harvard, but Harvard, yeah, I guess there's a reason why I didn't get in and go to Harvard because I don't think I would have passed that course as a freshman. Um, but it was still great to like learn all that, and then I took Patrick Collins's 30-hour YouTube course, and like that was absolutely amazing. Um, and then I just tried to do as many hackathons as I could. So I did ETH Global. I did like a couple online ones. I did multiple ETH Global. Um, and yeah, but if I were doing it today, I would just have like ChatGPT be my tutor and yeah, just really lean on that as a crutch.
Whoa, Toady, let me interrupt you for a moment here because I need to talk to you guys out there. Are you listening? Good. Are you into cool people, cool projects, cool art, and supporting creative people making creative shit? Good. Then you're into Yellow Collective. You just didn't know it. Yellow Collective has been sharing the alpha, the real alpha, not just on tokens, I mean, sometimes, but the alpha on the people. Community, culture, films, music, movie, art, everything that makes this world worth living in. So, if you want to learn more and you want to learn how to join this group, if you really believe that the true alpha was always the friends we made along the way, then check out yellowcollective.xyz. Join the yellow channel on Farcaster, and hopefully I'll see you in that yellow chat. Whatever Toady was saying, I'm sure was really important, so continue listening, and I'll see you later. Bye.
So you knew you wanted to work in the Ethereum ecosystem. You started hacking away and participating in some hackathons. How did you go about turning sort of that hacking into a more long-term career decision?
Yeah. Um, so okay, I think I actually posted about this the other day, but when I knew I was kind of at the point where I was running out of money and I wanted to like get a job like faster than I was going. And I applied for a job at Privy actually, and this is pre
What?
front. Yeah, this is pre Friend Tech Privy. This is like Privy had just pivoted to the embedded wallet. Previously, they were actually doing data management.
Henry was
They
literally our last guest, by the way. So
no
nice,
way.
nice callback. Yeah.
That is too funny. Wow. Yeah, and they had an open job for like a software engineer, and so I applied, and like my resume is very like clear that I'm like very like Ethereum aligned and passionate about this. And they saw my resume and they're like, "Wow, like you clearly like our values align with us. Like I'd love to talk."
Yeah.
And then we spoke. And then like they saw like my actual resume and it's like, okay, he's like really not that good of a dev, which was the truth. Um, so then I came back to them and I go, what if
Yeah.
I'm like an unpaid software? What if I'm an unpaid intern? Like I will help like however I can, like just like let me foot in the door and like I promise you I'll try my best to help. And they're like, yeah, like I don't even think like that would work. Like that would just be like
They're
too
like,
much stress
you're
on
a
our
bigger
point.
liability. You're a bigger
Yeah.
liability than a benefit.
And they were
I respect the hustle though.
And they were right. Like there was no question they were right. It was a big eye-opening moment for me. Like, okay, like I either need to like go all in on this and like continue practicing and get much better, or like find a new way I can like uniquely contribute. Um, and I went another direction just because like I was also just like fascinated learning about like Ethereum infra and like Ethereum's unique place in the world. And so I started like blogging about Ethereum with regards to like the technical upgrades and like basic like use cases I was interested in. So like stablecoins and like I actually did a blog about Lens because I was super interested in on-chain social. I still am, obviously, as you know that both of us are huge Farcaster users. But at the time, Lens was the more sexier decentralized social product, and that I was doing that for maybe 6 to 8 months, maybe a little longer, and then I had like a decent sized blog of just like random Ethereum topics. I was also writing threads on slash or I don't even slash Ethereum Farcaster channel. When channels became a thing, I like was just going all in on Ethereum because I just wanted like kind of people to follow my journey learning, and hopefully as I was learning, it would also help them learn. And um, and so channels was like definitely a huge moment for me to like, I felt like the Ethereum channel was like my place. And yeah, I mean, I'm still posting in that all the time. But and then in the jobs channel, Josh Stark posted that he was looking for somebody to work with him and help him on various different projects and the EF and various projects. And I DM'd him my blog and I applied, and yeah, the rest is history there. So I'm also thankful for Farcaster for getting me where I am in multiple ways.
Yeah. Proof of work, it's better than any resume. You talked about, your resume's sparseness maybe being the reason why you weren't able to land a job with Privy, but in the end, it was your activity, your actual hands-on activity on Farcaster and writing a blog that was useful that got you the job with the Ethereum Foundation. That's interesting. Lesson in there, you think?
I think the lesson there is just to like keep working and hope things will work out. Like think you'll get lucky. Like I definitely consider myself lucky, but at the same time, like the reason I got lucky was because I just like kept working really hard, and then also try to find like um where it's like easy for you to work hard. Like it's always been easy for me to like work on Ethereum and learn and teach and write and code like Ethereum related things because like I actually enjoy it. And so if you could find something that you can enjoy and work hard and just like eventually you'll get lucky and things will work out.
So right now, I think your title with the EF is Ecosystem Intelligence Lead. Is that still the case?
So as of today, that is actually not the case. However,
literally today.
However,
Okay.
This is internal and it will be announced publicly in the next couple of days. But I think that the broader Ethereum community and like people that know me and have worked with me are going to be like very excited about this new change. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is going to come out for sure after this week. Can you spill the alpha in that case or no?
Okay. Oh man, I wish I would have asked, like, because I'm not entirely sure when it's publicly announced.
I'll tell you what. Just share it and then I'll embargo it unless you say.
Okay. Yeah. No. That's perfect.
It's not live. Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah. So okay. Maybe for some context here is for people that haven't been following what's kind of happened at the Ethereum Foundation is this is a major time of change for us. Previously, the protocol side kind of just announced their restructuring. They moved teams around, created new teams to be like more focused on their three goals. The eco dev side, which is what I'm on, has been known that it's going through some changes as well. And those have been in the works for the past month and a half. And so it's going to be similar type of changes where teams have moved around, teams are moved, entirely new teams are created. And so previously the ecosystem intelligence team that I was on was actually now disbanded, and I've got switched to a new team that was created that is called App Relations and Research. So I'm really excited to be leading that team and like helping Ethereum apps grow and helping unblock new Ethereum apps and like really focusing on the demand side and seeing how like the EF can like uniquely enable apps to grow, because we really want to make sure we're not just like another player in the ecosystem. We're like able to leverage like our unique strengths and see where we could best help teams. So I'm super excited to be working on this challenge. Yeah, if anyone listening to this like wants to help, has suggestions, please reach out to me. I'm more than open. Like this is going to be a team effort, definitely not just us working on this.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations on the new role, first of all.
Thank you.
which I guess by the time this comes out will be a bit old news, but still alpha for me. And a lot of people watching will, I'm sure, be seeing it for the first time. So congrats on that. Can you tell us a little bit about how your focus will be shifting? What was your role mostly like as the ecosystem intelligence lead with the EF, and now how will it be pivoting now with the new role?
Yeah. So previously it was a lot about just like staying on top of staying on top of the Ethereum ecosystem, having a broad range of knowledge of everything going on, and then internally making sure that the EF is like well connected to everything going on. On top of that, I was also doing work with an app fellowship research program in which the fellows were researching kind of underexplored use cases and seeing like what we could do to unblock them and like why they failed in the past. And I was leading that. And this new role is going to be a little bit of what I was doing before, but more focus on specifically like reaching out to new teams and making sure like we know everything that's going on. And at the same time, like we're working together and seeing like how we can help you and how we can make sure you're growing. And then also one of the research fellows is most likely going to be joining my team too. And he'll be kind of doing like a pilot based around the previous app fellowship. And he'll be researching new ways that we can kind of make sure we're more focused on the apps that we're trying to unblock and doing like an ecosystem dive and seeing like where attempts have failed and what's changed and like if things have changed for specific apps. And now is like the time we could strike and like try to create like some sort of consortium to make that happen. And then at the same time, like I'm going to be doing like a lot of research into like various different use cases across the ecosystem, various different like write-ups, maybe talking about like the state of the stablecoin market and how we can like try to get some market share away from Tron, or talking about like why RWAs are best suited on Ethereum, how we can maybe like help creators like you and various different things. So it's going to be very broad and it's going to be very challenging, but I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, just as an aside, I saw you cast it and maybe tweeted as well about Tron just yesterday, I think it was, where you talked about how the most successful crypto app so far, aside from store of value, has been stablecoins on Tron. I wanted to ask you about that, so might as well do it now since you just mentioned it. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Tron's had such a so much success with getting TVL essentially, mostly in non-Western countries, but TVL nonetheless? What's the secret to their success, and how can Ethereum learn from what they've done?
Mhm. Yeah, so I'm certainly not an expert here, and this is something I want to dive into more. So keep everything with a grain of salt. I'm really excited. I'm speaking with somebody on Thursday that lives in Turkey, and I'm scheduling a call with someone that lives in Argentina really soon because I want to like
Nice.
hear it directly from them. But from what I've read about, it was they had like this killer trio of Binance, Tron, Binance P2P, and they all kind of worked together to like onboard the locals there. And it became this network effect where like they pushed really hard, and merchants in like Turkey and Argentina, all these countries where like people actually like needed stablecoins for their day to day, Binance and Tron made it as easy as possible for them to use. And then their friends were using it, and every store they went to use it. And the same way that maybe we might use Venmo or Apple Pay to pay, it just became natural for them to use like Tron and Binance P2P to pay.
So it sounds like they did a lot of the trench work that, like, for example, Coinbase and Base are doing right now in the United States, but they did it 10 years ago in some of these areas that needed it more.
Yeah, and I think they did like a tremendous job just like establishing network effects. So even during the last bear market, when numbers were kind of down across the board for everything, Tron fees have just been up the entire time, and it's almost solely USDT. And they just keep rising, and they did a great job winning it, but also it's a shame for their users because like they're paying higher fees than they need to pay, and they're getting like a worse service. So we could provide them a better service that's faster, cheaper, and more secure. But in order to do that, it's going to like require, I think, an on the ground effort and like working with like people across the ecosystem. So I'm excited to kind of get all the brightest minds in Ethereum together and start thinking about how we can change that, because like there is no question that it's still adding like a lot of value to people around the world, and it's like by far the most used crypto app. So like, how can we get that on Ethereum? I think that's what like we all kind of need to be thinking about.
Do you think it's highest leverage to try to steal that market share away from someone like Tron, for example, or to focus in other areas that maybe are still completely underserved or unserved altogether?
Yeah, it's a good question, and that's something that I'm going to have to like think deeply about. Of just there's a lot of problems to solve, and like how to best manage my time and like my team's time, and we're not going to be a big team. But I do think it's kind of worth realizing that, like, okay, store of value is by far the number one use case that we've had so far. And like, we are not early. Like, blockchains have been around for 15 years. Like, the total market cap is 3.5 trillion. Like, it seems like every day people are going on CNBC and talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum. So like, I honestly don't think that we're early. Like, new things will happen. Don't get me wrong. And like, people like you who are like innovating on the creator space, like, it's absolutely amazing. And I think there's going to be unlocks there too. But I also think it's worth recognizing that like, these blockchains are helping people like a lot around the world. And the second biggest use case by far is stablecoins. And a majority of like retail payment there is happening on Tron and USDT. And so I do think that's something that's worth spending at least some time to think around, at least whether it's worth it to like kind of go on like the attack there and like do some like guerrilla on the ground marketing and see what we could do if we get like Coinbase, Base, all the L2s, like all the wallets to be like, maybe we should try to like make a push and actually win this market, because if it's happened before, I don't think it's been like in a coordinated effort. And so that's maybe where somewhere like we can come in and try to make it more coordinated. So something for all of us to think about.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you what the wedge would be there, but I think you did mention it, which is that like the fees are high. So, I mean, there's definitely potentially an opportunity to go in and say you're paying too much, and people respond to that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You're paying too much, and now with like Coinbase, with Base, it'll be just like instant transactions. So paying too much, instant transactions, and like, yeah, they don't care about the security, but we could like maybe try to sell that too, because Base is like even more secure now than Tron is, where it's just like Justin Sun's toy chain.
Yeah. Switching gears just briefly back to the concept of apps, and I know that's going to be a big focus for you, obviously, going forward. That's bullish to me because I think, apps are one of the number one ways that we can really onboard new people to crypto, especially apps that do a great job of abstracting the hardest things about crypto to people who are not familiar with it. It's always been said that that's how you really onboard billions of people is, they don't even know that they're using crypto rails necessarily. I believe that strongly. I'm building an app myself on Farcaster, which was a new thing for me. And my eyes have been open to the network effect power of apps, and just people love using them. So I'd love to hear from you, like what's your bull case for apps, and how can Ethereum sort of leverage the power of apps to grow mindshare?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll say we have to use the power of apps to grow mindshare. Like, if we don't, then we're just kind of going to be building all this like infra for nothing. And that would be like an absolute shame. And apps, I think across the board, we have to like make better and usable and like explore new ones. I think Farcaster is doing great work with like mini apps and making sure like with the embedded wallet experience is amazing. One thing that I'm also excited about that I've just started to see like blossom early stages of is like the Coinbase Morpho partnership with regards to like users on the front end kind of just like wanting a better yield on their BTC or being able to borrow against their BTC, and like clicking a button, and then in the back end it's actually using smart contracts, and then they don't even have to worry about like necessarily like controlling their own keys and self-custody and like which chain I'm on, and like even all those problems that I think like we're probably going to somewhat solve. I think kind of the way we onboard the world is people won't be self-custodying, and that's okay, I think. Like, it's somewhat similar to the fact that maybe people on Farcaster, some people run their own email server, but I'd say most of them like use Gmail or Hotmail or another different email server. And that's fine in the sense of like Google search, they're able to like make ads there. They give you like the worst kind of user experience just because it's a monopoly and there's nowhere you can go. But Gmail is just like your straight email. You don't have to pay to use it because they know that like you can fall back and like you can run your own email server. And I think that's kind of
because you're the product. Also because you're the product, but yes.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And not everything is perfect with Gmail. It's not the perfect analogy, but it's still somewhat close in the sense of still you can go and run your own email server, and like people do. And because of that, you don't kind of have all the extractive things. But you're right, you are the product in some sense of it. That's why we do need to push to make sure things stay open and things stay decentralized, even if users are kind of opting for the I'll say, sophisticated option. Vitalik gave a really good presentation about that at ECC a couple of days ago, where he talked.
Is that the copyleft one or no?
No. So that's a blog post he just made. But this was like a presentation. And I love the opening. It's actually kind of how I've been pitching Ethereum to people, but he did it like in a much better job. Maybe shocker there. But he started with the cypherpunks, and I forgot the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of like, the internet is going to be open and decentralized, and there's nothing they can do to stop us. And then he showed a quote from Mark Zuckerberg saying like, I'm going to make sure that we're good. Like the purpose of what I'm building is to connect the world, and it's going to be like open and benefit everybody or something like that. And then he's like, all right, well, we knew how that turned out. And then he's like, we're saying all these things. Yeah, we're saying all these things right now about things are open and permissionless and you have the freedom to exit. But we have to make sure we actually like keep those values and we don't end up being kind of like Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, and it has to be intentional, right? I mean, if it's not an intentional thing, yeah, I mean, I guess that makes me think a lot about the value of decentralization in Ethereum. Like sometimes people will try to dunk on Ethereum and say, oh, end users don't care about decentralization. And then like the obvious retort is, well, they don't care until they do. But I've always maintained that like that they don't care until they do aspect has value to it, and sorry, that net neutrality basically is like valuable to companies and to organizations and stuff,
Yeah. And I think that they actually do. It depends on the product. Like, for example, the most successful product is still just like people buying these coins and storing their wealth there. And I think the numbers speak for themselves that they actually do value like decentralized and like neutral kind of store of values. And that's why Ethereum and Bitcoin are 1 and 2 and nothing's close. But it does like depend on the product. Like for something like stablecoins, I think it's been clear that they don't really care about decentralization. And most people use them just because they want access to US dollars or they want like the ability to save money on cross-border payments. And like, we have to recognize that and like kind of build better products for our users with like that in mind.
Yeah. And I mean, at least a lot of them are still being built on decentralized rails, right? Aside from Tron that we talked about, a lot of these stable coins are being built on Ethereum. So there's something to be said for that as well.
Yep.
Even if there's centralization vectors. Yeah.
Yeah. But we still have to keep in mind that there is like a blacklist where USDC and Tether can just be like, nope, you actually don't own these tokens anymore.
Yeah.
And users seem to be okay with that. And that's because the product is actually something else, and decentralization doesn't like necessarily strengthen that. And that's okay. But like the base layer itself with regards to like building out the store of value, like that's really important. Or like with DeFi, like extremely important. Or with like owning like valuable art or collectibles, like extremely important. So I think we have to think from a product focused view.
I've seen a lot of debate about that on crypto Twitter and elsewhere about whether, the increasing adoption of stablecoins is bullish or not for Ethereum and for decentralized finance in general. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, one thing that comes to mind for me is that you can't really fight product market fit anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. But do you think that in some ways we've lost if everybody ends up holding their tokens in something centralized like USDT or USDC versus something like Ethereum, or do you think there's like a silver lining there?
Yeah, I mean, I think our goal is to like make the world a better place and make the world more free and more open and like improve people's lives. And stablecoins are doing that. Like, I think there's like two halves of that. The one half is people that otherwise, because of like capital controls in their country, are not allowed to have access to US dollars and are just seeing their savings being inflated away. And like, that's just horrible. And they should have the freedom to hold like whatever token they deserve. And at this time, at least, like ETH is too volatile for them and they would rather hold US dollars. And the fact that like we via our like permissionless rails are able to offer that to them, that's amazing. And in the same way, like businesses that are currently having to wait like a month to send a cross-border payment and pay like maybe up to like a couple $100 to $1,000 on fees, depending on the size of their payment. And they can just pay like a couple cents to up or like a couple dollars. Like we're massively improving people's lives in both those senses. And so I think that's amazing. And then I think if you want like a decentralized kind of way to store your value, that's there for you as like a separate product.
Yeah, makes sense. We were just talking about Vitalik, and I wanted to go back to that for a minute because I know you're a big fan, obviously, working for the EF. You even have it in your bio that all opinions are your own or else they came from Paulina or V's blog. I like that. So I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite blog entry from Vitalik that you think about a lot?
Wow, that is maybe my favorite question I've ever gotten. Well, first of all, I want to say just like necessary reading for anybody that's in this space and like looking to like learn more what we're doing here and like what our unique position in the world is. I would go and look up Proof of Stake by Vitalik Buterin. I forget what the name of the other author is, but the other author also did like a fantastic job in like taking like Vitalik can sometimes be very technical and get into like the weeds a little bit too much on things if you're a newbie. And he takes all of his blogs up until I think like the merge, and so mid 2022, and he makes them like very accessible for new people. I think I've probably read that book like 3 times. It's so good. And
If you can give us the link, we'll definitely put it down below for folks so they can check it out.
awesome. Yeah, I'll shoot you the link. And it's on Amazon, or you can get it at your local bookstore. Actually, I'm sorry for stepping away, but here is the book itself. If you want to check out the cover. Yeah, even though I'd already read it and I had downloaded it, I'm like, this is something that I want to like buy and have on my bookshelf. But I would say my favorite one is maybe it's one of the first couple posts in this book, and it's from 2015, I think. It may be before Ethereum even launches, and it's called The Value of Blockchain Technology. And it's written even before he has this like Vitalik.ca or now like .eth.limo. It may be up for Bitcoin Magazine. I don't even remember. But it is just such a fantastic analysis about like what actually is the value of blockchain. And one thing he does that I think is super interesting is he talks about that there is no killer app for blockchain technology. And the reason why he believes that is because he wrote this in 2015, and so it had been around like 7-8 years since Bitcoin came out, and like the low hanging fruits of use of blockchain had already been kind of used, and those were actually payments for Silk Road and WikiLeaks, and people were willing to pay like substantial amount of fees in order to do that. And anything else that was kind of like an absolute obvious use of blockchain technology, his theory is like, well, it kind of would have been built by now. But he like spins it around and goes, this is actually like a good thing. So even though like there's not necessarily a killer app, the amount of value that like we could add to this world is kind of like a chart here. And like, although it's not like absolutely going to improve people's lives like 100x, we're going to like improve everybody around the world's life, maybe like 5x. And that means like the net addition to society that we're going to have if we're like able to like succeed in our mission will be like absolutely massive. So, and then he goes into more reasons of blockchain's unique place in the world. So I'm going to go with the value of blockchain technology.
I love that. I think that's interesting because it kind of puts like the permissionlessness of blockchains up on this pedestal, and it maybe doesn't always get the appreciation it deserves. It's something that I've always appreciated about Ethereum, about Nouns, where I was very active for a long time, still am. But yeah, just that permissionlessness of like anybody can do this, no matter where they live, no matter what genetic lottery or geographic lottery they happen to roll. They should at least have some access to some of these things, and I think that's pretty powerful.
Well, yeah, that was a tough question. Maybe if I get asked that like next week, I'll have a different answer. I think he's such a fantastic writer, and I've learned so much from him.
You want to know my answer?
Yes, I do.
I really loved a blog that he wrote. I don't know. I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago now, but it was about public goods funding, and it was called The Revenue Evil Curve. And he talks a lot about, different ways to think about public goods funding. And I found that really personally relevant for me because, I've been trying to build, on-chain media in an interesting way. And like, I feel very strongly that certain types of media and educational media can be public goods, but not everybody agrees with that. But reading his essay and like his treatment of it and like how, goods need to be non-excludable, non-rivalrous. That was part of the reason why we decided to make all of our content completely open source, because that's the only way that content and educational content specifically can be both of those two things, right? Because you can't sort of gatekeep, otherwise it's not a public good. So anyway, that was very personally relevant for me, and I love how you can take almost any subject and kind of just make it relatable and speak something interesting to you that you never thought of before.
Can I add on something to that there?
Yeah,
so he had a more recent one about public goods, which framed it as like, you could think of digital public goods as just open source code. And that was like
Right.
a really great framing for me, because I kind of struggled to wrap my head around like what even is a public good. Despite everything out there, I struggled with it.
Yeah.
I kind of am like, all right, are public goods just like a highway that the government are supposed to pay for? Like, I don't really, and what is it online? I don't really understand it. And that like simple sentence of just like, think about it as open source, like that really hit home for me. So like, I think like what you're doing is obviously a public good for the world, like making all your content like free for everybody
Thank
to
you.
use.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And then, like, also his most recent essay about copyleft too got me thinking. And I actually don't think I really understood what the definition of copyleft was, interestingly enough, until I read that. And it just makes sense. You're basically still, setting your content free to the world, or your code free to the world. But you're also saying if you are going to take it and you are going to use it, you're going to set yourself to the same standards and let other people repeat it, and no pulling up the ladder. And it's like, it seems obvious when you say it, but it does patch one of the major holes in open source philosophy, which is that you don't want to just give away your content, give away your code to someone who's going to use it to max extract, right?
Right. I haven't got a chance to read it, so I'm really excited now from your brief preview.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm glad that we've got a chance to sort of dig into your story and to sort of how you came into this role and what you're excited about in this role. I'd love it if we could maybe talk a little just about Ethereum itself, and sort of people who might be watching this and they may be saying, well, this is great. Jason seems really excited about Ethereum. Toady seems to like Ethereum. We won't stop talking about it. But what is so important about Ethereum? Why Ethereum?
Yes. Okay. So I think Ethereum is kind of the technology that's going against the trend. Now we saw with the rise of like Web 2, kind of these massive companies get built, and then we find ourselves on like 5 or 6 servers. So you could think like Amazon, Facebook, Instagram, um, insert all the big ones, Google. And what we envisioned to be this kind of open and free web ended up us on like 5 different servers. And then let's skip Ethereum now for now, and like let's go to AI. And like we're seeing a similar thing happen where like, yes, there is like an open source movement, but a majority, and like some people are trying to build ways where you could actually run AI locally. But a majority of people that are using AI
Shout out Eric Voorhees.
are
Big
just
fan.
going to ChatGPT or X or Claude servers. And we're kind of doing this all over again just because, like, don't get me wrong, they're adding a lot of value to the world, but it's kind of just like putting all these power in a few groups of people. And there's like negative consequences from that. Like in 2006, the Time Person of the Year was you. And that's because like this was in the internet era where like everyone was just like creating fun and new things on the internet, and there was kind of nothing you can do to stop you. And like the internet was this like fun and free place. And for reasons that like, yeah, we can get into, but we ended up on like all these servers. Okay. Now Ethereum is actually the counterbalance to that. Um, we're designing Ethereum, and like we're as in like the entire Ethereum community, because like Ethereum is like not owned by one person. Anybody can just like join the Zoom calls to like influence the way the protocol changes. Anybody can permissionly like build apps, do whatever you want. One analogy I love to say for like the Zoom calls about strategy and stuff is like, imagine if Apple put their like internal strategy meetings like on YouTube for everybody to see. It's just like boggles your mind because that would just never happen. But this like Ethereum system is open and free. Like Danny Ryan, who was one of the more influential people in the merge, just like came across it somehow, and at the time was doing like freelance web dev work, and was like, okay, this merge thing is like absolutely fascinating to me. I want to get involved. And he was like one of the most important people in architecting the merge. And that could be anybody listening. Like this system is like truly open and free. And like we can use this to like return power to the people and like redesign like all of society. If kind of things work out the way that we want them to, like nothing is guaranteed. We're gonna like have to work hard. But like we can kind of make the world more open and free and return more power to the people. And I think that's like a really important movement to be a part of. And that's kind of why I spend like all the past couple of years and all of them going forward trying to work on this.
Amazing. One of the main criticisms that's been levied at Ethereum lately, I guess, or over the past couple of years, is that it was losing market share to, more centralized competitors like Solana and the other L1s. What has Ethereum been doing to sort of tackle that and like not turn its back on first principles, but still sort of open their eyes to the realities of like competing in this space?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple things there. I do think that there was a unique point in time where like the door was kind of open to competitors to kind of take some of Ethereum's market share, and like they did a good
Right.
job of doing that. To be more specific, like we were at a time where Ethereum, the network, was being used so much, and the like gas fees can go into like a couple $100. Like I'm sure a lot of people listening have paid more than 3 figures on gas fees, and like that is obviously not sustainable.
I don't want to know. There's that site fees.wtf. I never go there. You won't catch me.
Yeah. So we needed to do something, and we needed to do something fast, or like people were going to move to competitors. And we were exploring ways to like scale the L1 at the time, but like doing it via like a sharded system is extremely difficult. Assuming you want to like keep properties that we wanted to keep with regards to decentralization. And at the same time, the L2's roadmap was actually, or the L2s, sorry, this wasn't L2 roadmap yet, but the L2s were like progressing in a way where they were going to be usable very soon. And then we saw like Arbitrum and Optimism go online. And when they went online, they were kind of like using Ethereum in like a hacky way. Like the protocol wasn't built to like support L2s. They were kind of just like using smart contracts in a way that they weren't supposed to be used for. And because of that, I'm not sure if you remember this, but L2 fees were actually like minimum 50 cents to like maybe a couple bucks in their early days.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago. That was like two years ago, right? When Base first came online, and yeah.
And so because of that, if you're using these blockchains in a use case where like maybe you're just doing a trade for 45 seconds, you don't really care too much about like the security benefits. What you care, like, is this cheap and is this fast? And for that like time period, there were other options out there that were like purposely designed to just be cheap and fast. And they captured the certain kind of segment of users that just wanted cheap and fast. Those times have changed, and now the L2s are cheaper and faster, and they're going to continue getting cheaper and faster. And I think that it was kind of, we had to take like one step back to take two steps forward. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like all bad too. This is my personal opinion. I think one of the biggest problems in this space has been like attracting grifters since its beginning. People who just want to come in and try to extract as much money as possible and leave. And that not people. I mean, some of them are actually like, we can call balls and strikes. Like, yeah. And that's a reality of the space, and nothing's going to change that since it's so financialized. And like, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that a lot of them have decided to go to other communities, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm glad that you brought up some of the tensions and some of the things that have changed, I guess, with the rollout of the L2 roadmap. But that has also been sort of a source of argument, of course, on CT, which always loves to argue about something. But the argument has been made that, maybe L2s like Base are parasitic to Ethereum, which, I've always found to be an interesting argument as someone who's been very active in the Base community since early on. And I know how like first principles driven Jesse is and the rest of the Coinbase team. And maybe if you're outside that bubble, it's harder to see. But what would you say to those people who think that way and think like the only thing that matters is the L1 and that the roll-up centric roadmap is a mistake, et cetera?
Well, first I would ask them like why they're so bearish on everything that we're building. What I mean by that is yeah. So web 2, like just normal like information servers, there's over 100 million of them in the world. And blockchains are like essentially like a distributed single server. So let's say like very conservatively, you think like Web3 or like the internet of value will use like 0.01% of that. Like that's still at least like a couple thousand to like 10,000. And if you think more than, and if you think 1%, that's like a million servers. So my question to them would be like, well, why are you so bearish to think that we're only going to use like one server to power all of the internet value? Like I am certainly not, even in the most pessimistic case. And so like one line that Josh Stark says that I like really like is like Ethereum hits the hardest problems first because we're the furthest along. And so
Right.
I think every
I
kind
like
of,
that.
yeah. He had an amazing
I
DevCon.
think it's easy. It's easy if you're just. It's easier if you're just gliding in the tailwind.
Mhm. Yeah. And eventually you're going to fill up your one blockchain. And like the only solution to that is to kind of expand in a modular approach. And like the modular approach is like so much more efficient than kind of just spinning up new L1s. Like it is not even close because you could stay decentralized with like the node set and then just like verify ZK proofs. And then you could actually keep scaling the amount of data that you can use as you like add in new nodes to the network. But if you say monolithic and you want to scale, that kind of just requires like there's hacky engineering things you could do, but there's a limit to that. Eventually, you're just going to have to like boost node requirements, and that's going to kick more nodes offline and make it more decentralized. So it's like Polynia has a fantastic post on this. It's called it's like the horrifically inefficiencies of monolithic blockchains. And so I would say Ethereum is just like kind of more planning towards the end game. And then like one last thing I want to say here is like sometimes people talk about like parasitic because the L2s aren't paying any like much fees to the L1. This is a good thing. Like this is how we get noise.
It's
like,
by design for one.
Yeah, this is how we were able to get like microtransactions. Like that's not possible if like L2 fees are high. And that is how kind of you strengthen ETH value as a store of value too. Because which is the number one like driver of this price. Like that is why like these assets are some of the biggest in the world. Like Bitcoin is a top 10 asset, Ethereum top 40. It's not because of fees. Like they're a rounding error. It's because people like buy this and store their value. And like ETH will be a more attractive asset to store your value if it's like used to secure a blossoming digital economy. And that includes like consumer apps on the L2s. So I think that like parasitic argument is just kind of people that a lot of it is just like VCs that are invested in other projects and want to like they're honestly doing their job to try to like make sure their LPs are getting paid. But if you like really look at things from first principles, I think it's like it doesn't really hold up.
I like that argument, and that resonates with me. Having said that, even if we do believe that L2s are bullish, there has been sort of, I guess, a shift within the general Ethereum population, at least on crypto Twitter, about the EF and others within the Ethereum research community focusing more on the L1 or giving the L1 more attention. What does that mean? What does that mean in context of what we just talked about?
Yeah. So, all right. So the Ethereum like foundation on the protocol side has like three main goals, and they're scale the L1, scale the L2, and improve UX. So like scaling the L2 is still like one of the main priorities. Now with regards to scaling the L1, it's kind of just because there's like a little bit of low hanging fruit that we could do in order to scale the L1. And like, we still do want to benefit the users and make sure you have the best experience on the L1. Like there's things where like the opcodes are like kind of not priced in the right way, and we could price them based on their like actual usage of the EVM in order to like be able to scale. And then there's things where we can kind of like use like parallel transactions. So like the CPU of the EVM can process more transactions and scale that way. But like the end game here, which I'm like really excited about, and like we have a full team on the protocol side working on this, is like to turn Ethereum itself into kind of like a ZK rollup where like the mainnet will actually just like process these like very succinct proofs, and we'll be able to scale up 100 to 1000x. Justin Drake just gave like a fantastic presentation on this at ECC called like Gigagas L1. And that's like kind of going to be the end game of like any single L1 is going to be like natively processing ZK proofs, just because it is just so much more efficient. And that future keeps getting
really
sooner and sooner because the ZK teams keep surprising to the upside. And one last thing about that too is all of this wouldn't be possible. Oh, it will be coming, but like this process got sped up so much because of the L2 roadmap. Because once like Ethereum announced it's going to be scaling in like the short to medium term with L2s, a lot of ZK EVM L2 teams raised like probably $1 billion, more than $1 billion total dollars to just like learn how to scale the ZK EVM. And now we see announcements from like Succinct and ZK Sync and like so many other ZK EVM teams that are just like blowing everyone's expectations with how fast and how cheap they can actually process the ZK EVM.
That's really cool. So if we get to the point where the L1 is just like blazingly fast, ZK powered, does that actually make it compete with the L2s that it's been nurturing all along? Is there a certain point where it's like base is like, oh crap, we actually can't get faster than the L1? Does that matter, or is it more about network effects?
Well, I think base will still always be faster and cheaper, but the L1 will be still fast and cheap. I mean, what I'm really focused on, and like what you're focused on, and like what everyone else at Farcaster is I don't want to speak for everyone, but a lot of Farcaster is focused on is like, well, once we have all this blockface, what is it going to be used for? Because
Right.
a lot of that is unanswered, and like we need to keep trying experiments, like with what you're doing with your Farcaster mini app. We need to double down on the use cases that already have product market fit, like stablecoins and RWAs. We need to like experiment with new like kind of hybrid designs, like the Farcaster protocol itself. Like that is such a blueprint of like a way that you can kind of like uniquely use Ethereum in the sense of they only use the blockchain for your like identity and keeping your user base from like protocol from client to client. And like we haven't
Right.
and using like
They're not like popping you up and making you sign a transaction for every cash you send or whatever.
Yep.
Imagine.
And we need more innovation there. Like I think that there's probably something with gaming that could be done there. Nobody's really trying. There's definitely other sectors that could take advantage of that. Like where could we just use like the blockchain for like a little sliver and use like maybe other P2P, maybe not, and like create something like totally new and like radical and like either entertaining or improve people's lives. I think there's something there. We just need to start
I feel like
experimenting more.
Privy is a good example of that as well, in my opinion, just how they've taken, blockchain at its core, but they haven't been particularly maxi on any one chain. You can just really tell that they're radically in pursuit of like bringing the most people possible on chain. And then once you have them on chain, you can do all sorts of things that you couldn't do before.
Yeah. Retweet. Privy team is amazing.
I love it. You were just talking about Farcaster. I did want to ask you about that. You've been a user of Farcaster since early days. I think you've been on the protocol for a long time, like I have. What do you like about Farcaster? What's the bull case for someone who's watching this and they haven't gotten around to, you hear that all the time, I haven't gotten around to digging in on Farcaster. What are people missing out on, and why do you think Farcaster is so interesting?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I'll start with a misconception about Farcaster. I think this has been like somewhat cleared up, but I'm sure some people that haven't tried it still think this, that it's just like a place where Ethereum people hang out and talk about Ethereum.
It's not even.
Exactly. That would be like, I would like that if that was the case, but it is not. Somebody had a tweet actually, or a cast recently, and it was something along the lines of like, why is nobody talking about ECC? Like, is it boring? Like, what's going on? And I forgot to reply, but I wanted to. It's just like the Farcaster circle like cares about Farcaster and mini apps and like the blossoming ecosystem here. Like they're like not even the type that really goes to ECC. They're mostly on crypto Twitter, and I hope we can convert them over. But right now, like the people on Farcaster are most excited about Farcaster. And like FarCon was just like an absolutely amazing time to be like around people that I've been like talking to online. But now to the pitch for Farcaster is, I think it's some of the more interesting people that I've like ever interacted with. And it really draws those type of people. It's a lot of like early stage founders, like honestly people like you who are just like, I want to experiment with Ethereum in this like new and weird way, or even like not Ethereum, sometimes just like normal Web2 stuff. And I want to be around interesting people to like give me feedback and try new things. And I just like,
and also just have access to all these Legos too. Like you said, there's all these different people building these composable things, and like you can just kind of wake up and see something in the TL and be like, oh, that would be interesting to integrate with something I'm building. And because everything's sort of open and permissionless, you can do that easily without having to be like, tied down with your hands behind your back by the API, like what happens over on X or elsewhere. So yeah.
Yeah. So I would say the community is the draw. Like I've even made real life friends from this. Like, yeah, the community is amazing. If you want to be around like smart, interesting people that are willing to try new things, give Farcaster a shot.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned friends. I definitely made a lot of friends on Farcaster. Definitely made a lot of friends also within the Nouns DAO ecosystem. I wanted to ask you about that. It was on my list to ask you. Nouns is sort of this interesting experiment where it's constantly in flux. I actually personally don't feel very connected to what's happening in Nouns right now, but it's been a huge part of my life for the last 3 years. I know you recently joined Nouns last year. I just wanted to hear about your thoughts from the outside. What attracted you to Nouns? How long had you been following it, and what are you thinking about it now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what attracted me to it was I was doing a project for the Ethereum Foundation report that came out in November, where I wanted to kind of try to track all of the public goods grants that have given out in the Ethereum ecosystem. And then that led me to Nouns, because I know that Nouns gives out grants for public goods. And so I was scrolling through all of the old grants or the proposals that Nouns have done. And I'm like, whoa, I knew that Nouns was like interesting just because like I saw interesting people on Farcaster talk about it, but I never really gave it the time to like dive into it. And I'm like, wow, like not only is Nouns just doing like cool work where they're like funding like skateboarders and artists and musicians and like people to like sing the national anthem at like sports events, but they're also just like, funding Ethereum public goods. Um, like one thing that stuck out to me was Nouns gave funding for Roman Storm and Alexei, the Tornado Cash devs. And this was actually at a time where most L2s were not even touching that for reasons I think is
regulatory reasons.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of nuts. Like what are we doing here if we're not going to like fund them? Like we need to like be funding just like open source devs. Like yeah, it's insane to me.
Just from an incentives sort of perspective, it's like if everybody knows that they're just going to be left in the lurch at the end of the day, if regulators come for them, then they're not going to take risks, and that's what we need them to do, right? So
yeah, and so then I'm like, all right, I definitely want to like buy a Noun and be involved in this community, and this was in November, but at the time, and yeah, this hasn't changed too much necessarily, but there is some groups that were just had this bot that was like winning every single of the auctions. And I really wanted to get it via an auction because I'm like, this is like a cool way to do it. Like, I don't want to buy secondary. Like, I want to win the auction. I want to know.
It's a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm. But they were winning every single one. And then unless you like bid up really high, you were never going to win. And so then in like January, February or something, I'm like, all right, screw this. I'm just going to like buy secondary just because I want one. And then I bought it. And then I've been like, I was passively following for a bit. It's really hard to just like stay involved with so much going on. But yeah, I mean, I still like every person that I've met in the community has been like absolutely amazing. And I love what it stands for. And yeah, I mean, I've been following a bit with the recent changes, and that's been, yeah, I know that a lot of the Nouns community that like I am in the same circles with are not the happiest with the direction, but
I mean, that's what I said about the top is that like Nouns is like by design this emergent value set organization, and like it is going to change, and you might not always feel fully aligned with the direction. That's how you know it's real. That's how you know it's not just a LARP. Like it really does have this like organism sort of like characteristic where it can grow and change. Personally, for me, all the reasons you just mentioned is why I'm feeling kind of out of touch with the community is that like when I look back on Nouns, what I'm most excited about, most proud about is all the crazy weird things and public goods that Nouns funded. And like, even if it wasn't profitable, even if it didn't have traditional ROI, it still like made a difference. And people still think about some of those things that were funded. It changed a lot of lives. And to me, that's a win, even if the treasury did kind of go down only. And also the auction price went down only. And that, you know, has an inevitable effect on people's morale in any community. I would have just preferred to have seen the treasury go to zero and continue to fund interesting, cool, novel things versus like other people have different priorities. They'd like to sort of try and like make the treasury into a flywheel that makes more money and stuff. And I can see the benefits and the reasonings behind those things, but I worry that if you take the soul out of Nouns to do it, then it's like, for what point, you know?
Yeah.
Do we really need another incubator or another VC firm?
No, is the answer. Yeah, and Nouns was one of one with that. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say all things are lost. Like Nouns, the way it's changing now, it may change in the future. Like
exactly.
I like,
and it's still here. You know, like it's been around since 2021. How many projects are still around and kicking and have their own like culture, ever changing culture since 2021? So kudos to the Nounders for even creating something with that much cachet and interest for people, right?
I'll always be a believer. Like it's not over. We'll see. I mean, yeah.
Well, anyway, like regardless of what happens with the actual DAO or it's a Duna now, like it's still like a symbol. Like, and the Noggles are just this interesting, very powerful symbol, and I think it'll always mean something to those of us that. I mean, look, like it lives on in the logo of Zero Rights. Like anybody who's had their lives changed by Nouns, like will remember it and sort of it lives on, I guess, vicariously. There you go.
I have Nouns things all over my apartment. I was actually worried at one point. I can see a flag.
See my shelf?
No.
Hold on. There you go. There you go. I got a whole shelf full of. Oh, it's kind of blurry, but anyways, I got a whole bunch of Nouns swag on that shelf behind me. Just take my word for it.
Yeah, we got more here. Like my apartment just has Nouns stuff all over it, and I'm sure that's just going to continue to grow, even despite the fact it's a DAO only in name, apparently.
Yeah, amazing. All right, biggest challenges ahead. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think is the biggest challenge ahead for Ethereum as a community?
It's a great question. I would say it's in general, um, we need as much brain power as possible focused on like how we can positively impact people like via the apps. Um, and like make sure that like we're not building all of this infrastructure for nothing, and we're able to like positively impact the world via like our or like our values are actually being like brought to people in a way that improves their lives. So I think this means doubling down on like the uses that have already worked, improving the UX, improving like the quality of the products, then like continue experimenting with new things, and then even going back to some old things. And now that like the infrastructure is more mature, like giving them a new shot. So the challenge is, I think, like getting as much brain power as possible on like demand and apps, and like figuring out how we can just grow this ecosystem.
I like that idea of like circling back and trying things again too, because I think it's so true that some things just end up being too early, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong idea. This came up on a Twitter space yesterday where we were featuring the dev behind Reply app on Farcaster, and how some people were sort of fudding saying, oh, this is just earn.com, back in 2025. And it's like, yeah, but earn.com isn't blockchain enabled. It isn't like uniquely set up in a way that like a Farcaster mini app is. And so let's try it with the new Legos and see what happens.
Yeah. Like the clear example of that today is now like tokenizing assets, where that was kind of the thing in 2017, 2018. Like everything's going to be tokenized.
Like RWA, that type of thing?
Yeah, yeah. And like stocks. And it was just like way too early. And now we're seeing like Robinhood do tokenized stocks, and like everyone and their cousin wanting to figure out how to tokenize financial products. And we need to keep trying that like on the consumer side, or with regards to like old things. On like
an interesting like network effect where that's concerned. Like I think that's what's happening with these tokenized stocks and whatnot. It's like it's not like it wasn't technically possible in 2017 to do it. It probably was. Maybe there was some fee concerns or whatnot, but like it was probably technically possible to do it. But there needs to be like a public acceptance of like, oh, this is real. Like oh, this OpenAI doesn't even say it's real yet. So I mean, it's going to take some time for people to decide that this blockchain version of my Tesla stock is the real thing or what have you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's why I think it's going to be like a group effort too. Like definitely this is not just the EF kind of trying to do things alone. And like we as a community need to kind of figure out where we should double down on, and like be like, look, like we're going to really try to like bring this app to the world. And at the same time, try to, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but yeah, it's a community effort.
Speaking of which, the EF has gone through a lot of changes over the past even months. I was going to say year, but it's even really been recent, like in the past 6 months or so. Can you explain to someone who's watching who maybe has kind of stayed out of the crypto Twitter drama what has been the main shifts in focus for the EF, and why do you think that that's either a bullish or bearish thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the EF has changed a lot over the past like couple years, and especially over the past couple of months. I think it just has a lot to do with the environment around us. I think if you're new to the space, you might not have heard the name Gary Gensler before, but not too long ago, he attempted to make our entire industry illegal. And with that backdrop, you kind of need a different structure in the foundation and how like involved it is in the community. And then I also brought this up earlier, where not too long ago, like the protocol itself kind of wasn't really mature enough to onboard apps that can like actually scale and like impact people today from both a scaling and like UX perspective. And then in the past like 3 years, we have like the merge, which made the protocol like much more efficient and stopped like burning unnecessary trees. And we've had like scaling efforts on both the L2, and we're going to continue scaling the L1. So the protocol side of things is now like ready to onboard the world. And then at the same time of things, the L1 is, the regulatory side is like you can be kind of more of a like, I'll say top down like organization that like kind of is more structured rather than like loosely kind of a thing that exists. So both those being said led to kind of changes in new leadership. The previous executive director, who had been there for 7 years, and I think she did like an absolutely amazing job, stepped down and became president. And now two new EDs have recently started, and one of the focuses is like the protocol, and with regard to the protocol, it's making sure it's like built so it's efficient and focused on its goals, and those goals being scale the L1, scale the L2, and improve UX. And so the teams were like rearranged, and some people were unfortunately let go. But I think it was like necessary to do with regards to making sure like we are focused on accomplishing our goals, and like anything that kind of isn't related to those goals needs to be like shifted around in a way. And then another change that's happening is, since like the protocol is ready to like onboard applications, I think it's kind of time for like the ecosystem side to be a lot bigger than it previously was. Previously, we like weren't kind of involved with regards to like comms or social media, for both those reasons I mentioned. But now we have like a new social media hire, and we're going to continue building out that team. I'm going to be continue involved in the comms too. And then also we're going to be more active in the community. We're going to be announcing the EcoDev restructuring soon. Hopefully it's already announced by the time you watch this, but if not, stay tuned. And that's going to involve, yeah. So that's just kind of like our ecosystem teams that are actually like actively in the community, seeing like what we could do to like help apps or like help public goods or like raise funding for people, or like do events such as like DevCon and DevConnect, or like run Ethereum.org and other various websites. And so that team is about to announce, or has already announced, their restructuring, and that team is actually hiring because we're ready to kind of make sure we're talking to institutions, talking to consumers, researching apps, doing kind of like all the necessary things now that we feel like infrastructure is ready to onboard the world and benefit people around the world. So I think it's extremely bullish. I've never been more excited about Ethereum than I am today. Truly believe that.
Amazing. I know we had a call recently, sort of off the record, and you asked me like, what could Ethereum do better to support creators and support builders, and I immediately pointed to the playbook that Jesse and the base team have been doing, and I'm seeing a lot of echoes in what you guys are doing now with the EF, in terms of like really trying to bootstrap it and give builders the distribution and the funding that they need to win, essentially. So love to see it. Hate that it was just like one person holding back an entire ecosystem like that. Thanks a lot, Gary. But it's crazy to just see that like one person in one administration, I guess, and their opinions about about one industry can have such like crazy rippling effects, to the point where like the biggest decentralized ecosystem in the world can be afraid of its own shadow.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because like if you actually like look at what we're trying to do, it's so like aligned with the vision that kind of America and companies around the world would want, with regards to like, look, do you want like Facebook and Amazon to just control everything, or do you want like the people to actually have digital rights? Like once you explain it like that, it's kind of a no question. But we definitely didn't do ourselves any favors. Like obviously FTX was just like a disaster, and even like prior to FTX blowing up, FTX as like an organization was clearly just trying to like extract as much value as they can for themselves, and like they were the ones.
But maybe in a different climate, though, like maybe FTX doesn't happen to the extent that it did. Maybe if there was some actual regulatory oversight instead of just constant regulatory or enforcement by regulation and all these crazy things that were happening, maybe FTX just doesn't happen in the way that it doesn't blow up so spectacularly.
Well, yeah. Like, let's keep in mind what actually blew up was like a off-chain component that, like you said, if there was like proper regulations and like they actually are kind of looked and said like, okay, we have this new blossoming industry that like does need some regulations, because like people are getting scammed every day, and like and people are getting hurt. Like, what could we do to help it thrive and make innovation flourish? And instead they tried to just like go after the good actors. And I think a lot of that too is FTX themselves was like, they were the ones that were in the room. I think this is partially all our fault too. Like we let FTX kind of donate all the money and like be the ones talking to the politicians. And like, even before they blew up, there was that crazy debate with Eric Voorhees where I think it was something about like regulating front ends, but Eric Voorhees was kind of just called him out. And it's like, look, you're just trying to like capture this industry for yourself and make as much money for yourself. Like you don't care about like pushing the values and actually making the world better for people. And like, then that was like the first domino that fell. And then the FTX unfortunately blew up. And yeah, I mean, I'm happy where we are today, but yeah, unfortunate path to get here.
I mean, Bernie Madoff didn't need blockchain to do what he did. So, I mean, it's just at a certain point in time, you're going to have bad actors that will take advantage in maybe any kind of financialized industry. I'm not sure, but Either way, yeah, a lack of regulation did not help things. That's for sure. What is the one thing that you're most excited about for 2025? We're halfway through now, but still another half year to go. Lots can happen. What are you most excited about?
Well, I would say first, just like the EF kind of new direction, like as it's like personally affecting me, I'm like super excited about like my new position in the industry and like try to do everything I can to like help apps grow and help like the Ethereum block space like be filled in a way that like benefits people around the world. And then we're starting to see like early stages on Farcaster of like new mini apps and new experiments. Like Noise, I think is an amazing example of that, where like micropayments
Big fans of Noise.
wouldn't have been possible up until very recently, and now like I'm getting to tip people in ETH every day, and yeah, that's just like so cool. And I'm excited to see that grow, and then continuing to see new.
Can't do that on Facebook.
Nope. Continuing to see new people experiment with like the open social graph and Farcaster and like mini apps on World. I think there's this like blossoming ecosystem there. And then on the finance side, am so excited about the doubling down. Like we need to make sure like stablecoins are happening on Ethereum rails and people are enjoying the security benefits of Ethereum. So yes, that means like the Tron things that we talked about earlier, but like also and like kind of I don't want to say more importantly because it's certainly not more importantly, but like more upcoming in the sense of like it's really anybody's thing to win and it's happening right now. Is just like these institutions want to be onboarded and they actually like they're now finally actually building products with it. Like before it was like, all right, I'm just going to have a blockchain team and put it in the innovation division so my shareholders see I'm doing blockchain and my share doesn't go down. But they weren't actually like planning on building products. Like now we see someone like Deutsche Bank that's doing like a private L2 to like benefit their people and taking advantage of the properties of blockchain while at the same time like keeping privacy. Like that is amazing, and I'm excited to see.
Or BlackRock with their Biddle fund, I've heard as well, has been funding a lot of things.
Yep. I'm excited to see like institutions in general like really thinking from first principles and being like, okay, we're ready to use this technology. How can we? And so I would say both those barbells on the app side, I'm really excited about.
Amazing. I'm excited as well. Super bullish for Ethereum and for the entire space for 2025. Can we close this conversation out with a quick lightning round? Lightning round of 10 personal questions, not too personal.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, lightning round. Let's go. Favorite cuisine?
Sushi.
Sushi. I love a good sushi. Musical preference? What kind of artists or genres you like?
Yeah, like chill house music. So like think Afro house or like melodic house.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say hip hop. I saw you post a lot of like Pusha T and some hip hop stuff. I'm a big hip hop fan myself.
So anyone wants to check out my Afro House channel, I've been posting on there from time to time. But yes, I do like hip hop as well. Yeah, shout out to Pusha T and all the old school hip hop people.
Leisure activities. What's your favorite way to blow off steam?
Tennis.
Tennis. You still play? That's awesome. Any other hobbies?
I like to work out, hang out with my friends, play video games. That's about everything. Oh, and
what's your favorite video
comedy
game? I'm going off script here, but
yeah,
I'm just winging it. What's your favorite video game?
I would say FIFA. FIFA's like my favorite of all time. But I've been in this little bit of an era where I'm playing old GameCube games, and I recently just finished Paper Mario, and it was so fun.
Oh, sick. We have one of those like emulators that you can plug into your TV, and it does like every Nintendo game from the last 30 years.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Any recent reads that you'd like to share? I'm thinking more so books, because I know you read a lot of essays and whatnot. But what about books? Anything that you'd share?
I haven't been reading books that much lately, which I'm like a little bit disappointed about that. I want to get back into it, but I'm going to have like a cop-out answer, even though you said not to do this. I'm going to do it anyways. I just finished rereading Paul Anaya's blog for probably the third time, and like he is just the best thinker with regards to like what is blockchains. I said this about Vitalik, so it's really both of them too. Like what is blockchain's actual unique place in the world, and like what are applications that like make sense to use blockchain? And I think now more than ever, we need to be thinking about that as like we're trying to onboard the world. That being said, I do want to get back into books. So if anybody has any book recommendations for me, please send me a DM.
Slide in Jason's DMs. Tech gadgets. Other than your phone and your computer, you can't say those. What's your favorite tech gadget?
I'm not sure. The first thing that comes to mind, and I don't think this is a great answer, is I somewhat recently got one of the like mechanical keyboards that everybody uses. uses, and I totally understand why everybody loves them. Just like the clacking.
What's the hype? I've never tried.
So I don't know. It's one of these things that's super hard to
haptic
explain.
Feedback.
Yeah, I think it's the haptic feedback. Like once you start using it, it's just like a pleasant experience. Now that being said, I do think it's annoying if you're like in a co-working and someone's using it, but I work in my own
click clack, click clack.
Yeah, yeah. And something about it just like feels so nice.
What is your favorite travel destination that you've been to? By the way, they're on to you. I think the Popo are coming for you.
The unfortunate side of living in
5-0, hurry up.
Yeah, New York City, you get to hear all the sounds of the city. I mean, I do love New York. I live here though, so that's not a good answer. I'm gonna say Amsterdam. I visited a couple times, and it feels like you're in like a Disney movie with the canals and the architecture. And I just think like I'm really into like very unique architecture. I think that's why I like New York so much, is because like when you're in like the heart of the city, you're just like in all these skyscrapers, and I find that just like such an amazing environment to be. And Amsterdam, I feel like I'm in like a Disney movie, and so I really enjoy that city.
I'm in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, and actually we've got a canal through as well. It's very inspired by Amsterdam or Dutch architecture in general. But it is nice to have just a body of water at all inside your city for sure. All right, inspirational figures. Who are the individuals that most inspire you?
No man, can I say Vitalik? Is that okay?
Yeah, you can say Vitalik.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most honest answer.
Vitalik is the honest answer there. Yeah.
Any productivity hack that you would share that you use that you think maybe most people aren't aware of?
Most people are probably aware of this, but I'll say it anyways. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but I've been using this software again called Self-Control, and you put like the websites in it that you want to block, and then it doesn't let you access that. And so I have Farcaster in there, like Twitter, like ESPN, Reddit. And so I click block for like 2 hours, and I'm still like just
Get shit done.
But even still, I'll like Control T and try to go to Farcaster, and then it's blocked. I'm like, oh, nice. And yeah, so that's been the best productivity hack for me.
I love it. Finally, what would be your alternate career path if you weren't doing what you're doing now? What do you think you would be doing?
Well, definitely not investment banking.
You found that out, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I've thought about this before in a little bit, in the sense of like what my skills are is like knowing and understanding Ethereum. And so I definitely fit in best here. But in another path, I like the tech side of AI. I think it's definitely like improving people's lives too. Somewhat recently watched Carpathy's like 3-hour long deep dive into ChatGPT, and like it was so good, and like it reminded me a bit of learning about how Ethereum works for the first time, and just like learning how a technology that's like so kind of what's the word I want to use, like impactful to society, like works behind the scenes, I think is really fascinating. So maybe I would do like a similar role for like open and decentralized AI, to try to like make sure that's not like captured by just like open AI. So
Eric Voorhees, are you hiring? No, just kidding.
Not I'm unfortunately not looking for a new job. I'm very happy with where I'm at right now.
No, you got a great new one. Congratulations for that. Well, thank you, Jason, so much for sitting down. Actually ended up chatting longer than I expected, but I hope it wasn't taking up too much of your time, but it was just a great chat and I didn't want it to end. So thank you.
No, I agree. Fantastic discussion. Thanks for having me on.